I feel like glitter. Hello everyone, Ryan here, and today I'm doing a review of the new Tyler the Creator album titled Scumfuck Flower Boy, or now just known as Flower Boy. Tyler the Creator is an artist that you're probably all familiar with. He's a very divisive artist in hip hop, and not just hip hop, but in modern music in general. He has been seen to kind of be very provocative with his lyrics, and a lot of people have appreciated that and found him kind of like edgier than most hip hop artists, and kind of like his persona and the way he just says what he wants to offend people. But then on the other end of the spectrum, you've got people who just think he's an edgelord, a really annoying teenager that just thinks he knows it all. And I'm kind of on that end of the spectrum, to be honest. I've found most of his lyrics in the past pretty bad. And not that I'm offended by what he says or anything like that. Usually I just don't really care what he says. And that's the issue. It's like he's not really saying anything that gets me going, like, oh, I'm just like, ugh, really? You're saying that shit? And however, he seems to have matured on this new album, and we don't really get any of that across this whole album at all. The only thing we do get is that Tyler Creator is now talking more about his sexuality, which a lot of people have already kind of dismissed and, shot him down for just doing the same thing again, where he's just, oh, he's trolling us all. He's just using the gays as a way to become the new trolling thing for him. Oh, and it's just a little annoying to see all these articles come out and just tear him down, basically, on just sexuality reasons. And to be honest, I think the lyrics on this album are seeming way more honest than he's ever been before. So I'm not sure that they are, trolling or anything like that. They seem genuine, and I just don't really think it's that big of a deal. But aside from all that's not really the main point of this album. The thing that I think that makes this a more mature release for Tyler is just him himself. Like, he sounds way more personal than I've ever heard him sound. And it's really strange to hear him go from Cherry Bomb to this, because I remember seeing a tweet back in 2015 when Cherry Bomb came out, that, Tyler Creator finally like found his sort of goal and seemed like way happier in himself, and his life was going a lot better. And Cherry Bomb kind of reflected that with the music. And like 2 years later, he sounds like he's hit another lull in his life, and he's hit rock bottom, and things are going pretty shit. But production wise, this album actually follows a similar pattern to what Cherry Bomb did in that neo soul kind of stuff. But this time it sounds actually well recorded, and oh wow, the production on this album I absolutely love. It's just, oh man, it's so good. It's incredibly lush. It just sounds lovely all the way through the album. Like, every track is produced so beautifully, and I just absolutely love the sound of this album. I don't think I've heard an album this year since Control by SZA that sounded like this well produced. Because that album again was really amazing in terms of production and sound, and this is kind of similar to that in a sense. I have seen a few people already say that the production on this album is a little boring, but I have to argue against that because I don't see how people can think that. I think this is really well produced. I think at times maybe Tyler the Creator doesn't sound as interesting, as he's flowing on some of the songs. He does sound a little sleepy, but it's the production that sells every track for me. I feel like it's produced so well, and Tyler really has done a great job with producing on this album. And even on the first track, we see that Tyler himself is just rapping so well, and he has a production credit on this track from Can, of all bands, like the krautrock band Can. I was so shocked when I saw that they were involved in this song. But hey, I guess Tyler Creator has pretty diverse taste, because he has quite a lot of good features on this album. We even have Jaden Smith on Potholes, which actually isn't as bad as you'd expect. Like, I've heard few people already say like, oh, why did he feature Jaden Smith? But the chorus is pretty decent on this album. I don't mind that track at all. We also have features from Estelle on Garden Shed, which is a really nice track. Also, Frank Ocean, of course. Frank Ocean appears on a few tracks here. I do like his feature On Where This Flower Blooms a lot more than 911. I think 911 is an okay song, but I think it just gets way better in the second half when he gets to the Mr. Lonely part and he starts really rapping well and he's talking about, being the loudest in the room tends to be people that are the most lonely, which I think is something that I've heard a lot and I'm not sure how true it is, but actually sometimes you tend to see that people are like that, like people that laugh loud are usually quite insecure, like laughing loud, I mean, in like the sense that the joke isn't that funny, but they just seem to laugh so much. Like that's something that you do notice in people when you're just like observing general behavior. So I guess Tyler Creator may be kind of reflecting upon himself too, because a lot of this album he seems to be at a point where he's just not as happy. Like he wants to get to the point in his life where he was happy, like on the track November, where he was referencing November as like a point in time that he wants to go back to. It's not necessarily the month November, but he's kind of like questioning like what's your November, like November being the metaphor for the time that you wanted to be back in and the time that was the best in your life. I suppose it's a bit of a sketchy metaphor because you could replace the word November for anything. Like November could just be any kind of word and it would still make sense, but perhaps it means a lot more to Tyler than it does to the listener because November might be an actual time in his life where things were a lot better than they are now. There are a couple of tracks that actually don't fit in this album particularly all that well, like even though they're great tracks, but in terms of the way this album sounds, they don't seem to hold up in the way that you kind of want them to, and I think that it's a bit weird to hear them in context with the album, and I'm talking about the tracks Who That Boy and I Ain't Got No Time, which are tracks that bang really hard but just don't fit that neo soul vibe that the whole album's going for. And those are both great tracks. It's just like they're a little out of place, so like they don't fit the vibe of the album, but I do love them. They're some of the best on this entire album. Oh, and Lil Wayne really comes through on the track Dropping Seeds. He sounds awesome on this song. He really drops some amazing metaphors about like dropping seeds and flower, growing, and plenty of other stuff too, which is really cool for Lil Wayne. I didn't think he would come out with something as good as this. But it's also interesting about the entire album as a theme. I feel as though like there's something going on here with Tyler Creator kind of using the metaphor about flowers, kind of like is he kind of like blossoming into something new? Is he like finding himself, like discovering himself and realizing that he's blossomed into something that I didn't expect? I think just reading into the lyrics and trying to discover what this album is all about, it just alone is makes this album really interesting and really kind of like ear grabbing in a sense that you just want to find out more and what Tyler's really talking about on each song, whether it's all a metaphor for one thing or it could be something else. That just makes it Tyler's best work to date for me. I've never really been interested in any Tyler Creator album, but this is the first one I've ever thought was actually filled with a huge amount of quality. I think again this is Tyler's best album to date easily. I think at the moment, I kind of want to give this a tentative rating from my perspective because it's been really nice weather lately in the UK, so I feel like listening to this album with nice weather helps the vibe of the album. So I just want to wait and see if in a few months when, the weather turns to shit, because it always does in the UK, that if this album still holds up or it's just kind of like the experience as a whole kind of like puts you into this album and makes the vibe a lot better. So I'm gonna give this a B, but again, I think it could still make my year-end list because a B generally can in my ratings. It's just not quite solid enough for me to make it a definite album that'll make my year-end list. Still, oh, great album. Tyler is no longer sounding like a dickhead, which in my eyes is just a massive improvement just based on that. And yeah, the production and the lyrics are all really great. And yeah, Tyler's really onto something here. I think if he continues in this direction, I think he could make a masterpiece in a few years. I really do appreciate the vulnerability that Tyler displays on this new album. I think that his personal side is something that's worth hearing on future releases and even on this release. I really like the lyricism here. It's something that's becoming more prominent in rap music, and I'm starting to really get a good appreciation for it, especially when rappers that never used to do it are starting to do it, and I like that a lot. And yeah, this is a great album. Make sure you listen to it. If you have listened to this album, then let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you like this review, make sure you subscribe for more reviews and have a good